Welcome back to the second episode of Texas A&M Aggies Live, part of the Voice of College Football Network. I am joined, as always, by my co-host Will Stone, and today we have Robert Behrens of Good Bull Hunting, one of the funniest guys on X and one of the better writers and coverage guys for A&M, a part of our family. As you guys know, I'm lead writer of Aggies Wire with USA Today. Will is a contributor with Good Bull Hunting, working under Robert, so obviously, they know each other very, very well. And to start, we are obviously going to discuss the hiring of Bucky McMillan, Texas A&M's new head coach. He's the 23rd head coach in program history. He's replacing Buzz Williams after 6 seasons. And obviously, for somebody like me and everybody else who has been covering this team since Buzz Williams has been here, I came in, I think, in the 22 season. I can safely say I'm very excited to see a new regime come in, and especially in a very exciting one, because if anybody has followed McMillan's career, he was the head coach of Samford for 5 seasons, came from, I think it's Mountain Brook High School in Alabama, won, I believe, Robert, you can maybe correct me, I think it's 4 state titles, I believe, in high school. 5. See, there you go.
State titles and two years where he lost in the state championship game.
Yeah, which is extremely impressive.
Oh, dang, I know that part.
Exactly. And I mean, that's extremely impressive for anybody who knows basketball. You kind of have casual fans that would see this and go, well, what has he really done? He hasn't been an assistant coach under big names or anybody like that. Winning is winning, and winning at every level is important. And the fact that he got hired at the Samford position at a very young age and turned that program around. They hadn't made the NCAA tournament, I believe, since 2000 before they made it back in 2024, where they lost to Kansas in the first round. A very exciting game. I think a lot of people remember, especially college basketball fans, where they almost pulled it off, playing a very frenetic pace of offense, playing a defensive style that even Buzz Williams didn't use a lot. These guys were relentless. And I'm going to be honest, outside of having a depleted roster, mainly with Pharrell Payne and Solomon Washington following Buzz Williams to Maryland, he's got a lot of work ahead of him, but I think the future is very, very bright. And on Monday, he was officially introduced to the fan base at Reed Arena. A lot of great quotes came out of that. I think my favorite was him basically saying that any of the guys, every player that plays for this program from here on under me is going to represent A&M to the fullest. They're gonna be dogs out there, and you're gonna love every minute of it. So, guys, what is your main takeaway from his hiring, his press conference, and how excited are you to see him in College Station?
I can say for me, I think the biggest thing that's exciting about hiring Bucky McMillan is just the fact that it's kind of, I think, what a lot of A&M fans wanted A&M to do with this hire, because they took the big swing at Chris Beard that was very highly publicized, which, I mean, I have my own thoughts on that personally, but I get going after like the big fish and kind of, shooting your shot. But when that didn't happen, I think this is what I wanted them to do, was go find one of these guys at a mid-major who's kind of overachieving at a small school and see if he can replicate that at A&M and kind of and be one of these next mid-major guys who can take this next step. Because while nothing is for sure in any coaching hire, but if you kind of come from a football mentality, you may look at it and say, oh, like, he coached at Samford, why would we even bother with this guy? But that's not really how it works in college basketball, because you look at Nate Oates, who's at Alabama. Before he was at Alabama, he coached at Buffalo. Before that, he was a high school coach. There's so many other examples. Todd Golden at Florida was coaching at University of San Francisco a few years ago.
Just won the Natty last night.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, you can go down the list, and it's almost half the SEC head coaches now are guys who came from a mid-major before they got hired in the SEC. So it's very much the kind of the sexy thing to do now in college basketball, is not just hire a retread guy who's been at a power program before, who maybe he's been to a Sweet 16 or two, and you're hoping he can either, replicate that, or if he has like really, really big success, it's kind of defying the odds because he's never done it before, or he did it 15 years ago. Um, so yeah, you're kind of taking your chance that if this guy hits, like he could be your coach that like makes his legacy at your school and is there for the next 10, 20 years. I mean, is that the likely outcome? Maybe not, but I like rolling the dice, and I think, especially like you mentioned, the brand of basketball that he brings is going to be really just fun to watch, win or lose. I saw an article from a reporter out of Birmingham this past week after A&M made the hire, and he said it the best way that I could think of. He said A&M going from Buzz Williams to Bucky McMillan offensively is going to be like going from watching paint dry to playing paintball.
I cannot remember the author. I did an
That's
article about that, and I'm with you. I thought that was brilliantly written. I thought the best thing to come out of that article was that you're getting a firsthand perspective, somebody who's been following this man's career for a long, long time. When you are covering a smaller school like Samford, it's just different, right? You're dealing with a different set of expectations. You're not dealing with the same type of boosters and pressure and stuff like that, because if you're a Samford fan, you're just looking to make it to the tournament, right? That's a big deal, right? And contend for a SoCon championship. But for these fans, everything I'd heard is, they're going to miss him a lot because it was just fun. It was just fun to go to those games. It's fun to watch this offense and defense play. I mean, you look at some of their star players, and we're going to get into that. Some of the guys who have entered the transfer portal now, I think it's Jaden Brownell was one of their leading scorers. He was shooting nearly 50% from the field. I think 40% from three. He's getting underrated players who are just becoming efficient offensive guys and guys who would fit in any program. And I'll let Will give his opinion here in a second. But yeah, I think the biggest takeaway for me from Monday's press conference was, we heard things like, oh, he was a little awkward and he's got kind of a funny laugh. It's like, he's real. He's real. I mean, look, nothing against Buzz Williams. I enjoyed Buzz Williams' career for the most part. He's a very prophetic guy, very philosophical. Every time I listened to him, it like took me back to my philosophy class in college during my freshman year. And I was like, hey, what are we talking about here? We still talking about basketball? It's like, but you just want that now. And the best thing also is that he made a Buc-ee's joke finally. I mean, I knew that was going to come out with the connection to one of the biggest stores in Texas. But it's, it's just something different. I think Aggie fans deserve that.
Yeah, I think on the topic of Buzz, and I said here last week, like I'm a big fan of Buzz the person, even Buzz the coach. Like it's basketball at Texas A&M. We've never devoted a lot of resources to it. We've never had historical success. I want a team that plays hard, and like I enjoyed those aspects of the team. Obviously, I didn't enjoy everything because we didn't score a lot of points. We were kind of ugly to watch, sometimes, especially this year. But a couple years ago when we weren't super talented, but guys like Quentin Jackson and Wade Taylor and those guys just really playing hard and playing great defense. I like that's at least something that I could appreciate, even if we don't win the whole thing. But something he said maybe last year that kind of like was very foreshadowing his tenure here, where I was like, man, he's not going to make it that long. He said, like verbatim, he said, I don't care how many basketball games we win. And it was in the context of like, I care about developing these young men and like making sure they're good husbands and fathers and whatnot. And like, that's all amazing. And I think he does a very, very good job of that. But I do care about how many basketball games we win. And I would like it if our head coach felt the same way.
Yeah. Like all due respect to Buzz Williams, but he's not being paid $4.5 million a year to develop character.
Yeah,
exactly. But
that's the thing. It's like, you can play counselor, you can be that guy. That's, you really got to separate it completely, because you can do that internally, right? You can be that. And we know a lot of coaches. Calipari is one of them that I always think of, and that he's always discussed, like, I'm always here to get these guys to the NBA. I'm here. If they want a basketball dream, I'm going to develop them. I'm going to get them contacts they need. I'm going to get them to the summer league if they need that. I'm going to do everything I can to get them to their goal. And I thought that's great. But at the same time, everything else was basketball. It was purely basketball. I think Chris Beard with all the controversy in his background, outside of that, one of the things that was appealing to fans and everybody else who wanted him, and especially A&M fans who thought this would be a big fish, like Robert mentioned earlier, is I think he had a quote during the SEC tournament or something. And it was like, I want guys who bleed basketball. I want guys, basketball is everything to them. It's life, right? That's what A&M needs right now. And I'm not saying that Bucky McNeil is that guy and he's going to say, I need you to believe basketball. It's your life. Don't have relationships. Don't have a life outside of this. That's not the case. But he's 41 years old. I'm 31. So it's, and we're all in that age range pretty much. And it's kind of like, he knows what he's doing, but he's still young, right? He's mature, but he's still, somebody that you can trust in terms of taking advantage of new analytics approaches and, not just doing what he wants, right? Not just what worked for him here and I'm going to keep doing it. And that was Buzz's biggest issue, is that we always talked about every offseason, is this team going to become a better shooting team? Are they going to finally get more 3-point shooting efficiency? Are they going to be a threat from that area? Well, it never happened. I mean, I can't even think of a year, where they were one of even average 3-point shooting team, and they went out and got CJ Wilcher last offseason. Didn't use him correctly this year. He had some good moments, but I can even think in the NCAA tournament loss to Michigan, he wasn't utilized correctly, and we can say that about a lot of players. But it just never got better. And you now feel that outside of the depleted roster, it's going to get better in those areas. And I can just trust that based on what he did at Stanford and how he talked about how they're going to coach. I think one of the biggest takeaways, and I'd love to get your guys' opinion on this, is the hiring of Mitch Cole and Kyle Keller. He talked about Kyle Keller yesterday. We know Mitch Cole, one of the better recruiters. Obviously, both those guys worked under Billy Kennedy back in the mid-2000s during A&M's more successful reign. I believe Mitch was on the 2015, 2016 team that went to the Sweet 16. But Keller specifically is one of the better defensive minds. And having these two assistant coaches, barring other hirings he's going to make, that's going to be a big part of his success here.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, like you said, bringing those guys in is key just because they are familiar with A&M, so I think it eases that transition. And also, just from a recruiting perspective, I think they probably still have some of those recruiting ties in the state of Texas, because that's always the big worry, when you bring somebody in, even these days with the transfer portal, that he's coming from, he had spent his entire coaching career and playing career in Alabama, barely leaving the city of Birmingham. So that's like your one worry, is like, is he going to be able to reach out to these places in Texas and wherever and be able to get in the door and be able to talk to kids? So getting those guys that can kind of grease those wheels, I think is going to be huge for him. And it's just, the familiarity of guys who have coached at A&M before and kind of know the ropes a little bit.
Yeah. I think it's kind of like a pretty well-rounded staff where you do have a couple of those guys that have been here before. You got some other guys that haven't, but like maybe they have, either experience in his system or some recruiting chops, that sort of thing. And I don't have the numbers or this quote in front of me, but sounds like it's going to be a more like there's going to be more positions filled than we've ever had at a basketball program or basketball team for A&M, like different analysts and scouts and like GM, like all that sort of stuff. Like, I'm not sure if those have even been filled yet, or if that's or what the progress on that is. But it's kind of more of a modernization of the whole staff, kind of like we had with football, with like it was getting there under Jimbo, but then like things kind of fell apart. We didn't have a recruiting coordinator, and now we've got a GM, a guy that does high school, a person that does just transfer portal recruiting and scouting, all that kind of stuff. So I think having a similar like infrastructure around Bucky and basketball is going to set him up well. But that's what I'm anxious to see. I think we're all anxious to see how he can kind of navigate this personnel debacle that he finds himself in, where we've got one guy left, and there's thousands in the portal. There's probably a handful or so from Samford that are likely to come with him, but he's going to have to kind of scour the country to find some guys to even get to get to 15.
Yeah, and he was vocal that he's not going to be able to be as picky as he
Mm-hmm.
might normally like this year, just because when the portal closes in 2 weeks and you've got to basically build your entire team. At some point, you just have to find guys that you think will fit your system and go. But I think the good news is that going forward, I think that this is a brand of basketball that is going to appeal to recruits.
Mm-hmm.
Because look, I mean, Buzz Williams, as well as they did in the portal, and as well as they did in amassing a relatively talented roster, A&M did not recruit anywhere close to an elite level at the high school level under Buzz Williams. But when you bring in a coach who says we're going to lead the country in scoring instead of saying we're going to lead the country in offensive rebounding,
It's pretty exciting.
I think that that appeals to those high level recruits maybe just a little bit more.
I think a guy like Jasir Ranker, who is he's a guy I've been following for a while, because there are 25 classes made up of 3 players, signing class made up of 3 players right now. Obviously, we were kind of waiting to see what their responses to this would be. It's been pretty quiet, but I think they're looking at this right now and going, okay, I like this, because Jasir Ranker was a guy who kind of a surprising addition, right? Because he plays very fast. He's one of the better 3-point shooters in the 25 class. And so I was kind of thinking, okay, well, maybe when Buzz signed him, I was like, okay, well, maybe this is going to be that next 3-point guy that's reliable. Well, now he's going into a system where he can absolutely thrive. So I got to think that that's going to help them in 26, 27 going forward. But a guy like that is somebody who I think can end up making a big impact here, because you tailor, and we saw that with Florida this season, right? Their best player was from Iona. It doesn't matter where you come from. I mean, I think a lot of people get hung up on, 5-star this, 5-star that with basketball. I think it's way different with football, and we can obviously get into that. But guys who fit systems and are allowed to play free, gain confidence, they're the ones who end up being stars. And I've seen that for the last couple of years, especially in the NCAA tournament, because I think the funniest thing with Florida winning the other night was there's article after article about there were no 5-stars on this team or something. It's like, yeah, well, it doesn't matter. It's about the coach, and that young coach who also has some controversy in his background. No matter what, he's one of the better, smarter guys. And yeah, I mean, obviously the jokes coming out about him winning were pretty hilarious, but
they were. But I'm sure you guys saw that graphic. I think it was of the Sweet 16, and hey, here's the logo of the school where each kid started from, each team starting 5. Like, can you guess what team that actually is? And I was like, at first I was like, I can't even find Florida on here. If it wasn't for the FAU logo, I wouldn't have found them.
Exactly.
So that's where Elijah Martin was from. But yeah, it's crazy. Like, it's like in football, it's obviously the portal is a huge deal, but in basketball, it's the entire game. Like, if you don't go out and get the very best in the portal from these guys that get passed over these smaller schools and start lighting it up, if you can't go out and get them, you're going to be falling behind.
Yeah, because we saw, Bryce Lindsey is always a guy who obviously I think he's still in the portal. He was somebody I was always so confused why and I think Buzz did play him a little bit. He'd play him in non-conference games to start the season, but you wouldn't see him again. And we all knew, like, well, if you follow his high school career, this guy can score, and he can become, a star on your team and an instant bucket, as the kids say, for any team who just gets him on there. He's extremely confident, and Buzz just didn't know how to utilize those guys. And I think the Bryce Lindseys of the world would become, 15 point, 40 plus field goal percentage, 30 plus 3-point percentage guys in this system with McMillan. I think that he's going to end up surprising a lot of people going into probably, I would say, after this coming season. I think that, barring whatever happens in the next month or so, we just don't know what this roster is going to look like. I'm not dedicating a lot of time at Aggies Wire, for example. We're not really, you're not talking about, well, how bad is this roster going to be? Because we all know that it's a rebuild. But still, I think it's going to be more interesting to watch that rebuild than it would be to watch a Buzz Williams rebuild, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, if Buzz would have stayed, I mean, it looks bleak, and like even having Payne and Solo, who I think are tremendous players, like this, like it was clear that he went all in on this year. Like, you had 8 seniors, you had your all-time leading scorer, but yeah, I think it's similar to, yeah, I feel like I just keep bringing everything back to football because it's really all I know. But with it's similar to with Elko. Like, yeah, like Elko couldn't be as picky. He went and got what he could. He's like, hey, we need 8 defensive backs. Like, we don't have any guys. So he just went out and got numbers. A couple of them played really, really well. But it's kind of that thing where, hey, you're not going to win the conference in your first year in basketball under Bucky next year, but can you show proof of concept? Can you show, hey, we may lose, but we're going to lose, 95 to 92 or something like that, instead of losing, 56 to 50, 51 or something like that.
God.
Yeah, and I think just long term, Buzz was here for 6 years, and I think it's fair to look at what the program was under him, and say that I'm not gonna say they had reached their ceiling. I think this could have been a Sweet 16 team without a doubt. But the bottom line, 6 years and 2 tournament wins. He didn't just have the program humming. It was good, but pretty much never great. And so certainly while he left voluntarily, I think it is a situation where both sides have the potential to be better off here 2 years from now.
Yeah, it is. It is one of those hires where I believe that every A&M fan, everybody who's even, very skeptical about his experience, and I mean, I'll never understand the experience thing, even in my own line of work. But look, you got to give guys chances. I credit Trev Alberts a lot for this hire when it came down the wire on Friday night. When I saw the rumors come in and then we finally reported it, I said, you know what? This is not a guy I thought, but this is a guy I really like. This is somebody who has a true vision and someone who understands completely how college basketball is changing every day. And he's been a part of the ride, but now obviously is a huge promotion for him. And very excited to see what he does over the next month.
I've got one more football.
Go ahead.
Comparison here, if you'll allow me. So I like what you guys are saying about how, about the approach. We took a big swing. We tried to Aggie it or A&M it. Try to go give a bunch of money to a hot name. Which, side note, paying our basketball coach at A&M what we pay our football coach at A&M, that just sounds like bizarre. Like that's an alternate reality where that happens. But I mean, I get it. Like, the guy's a great basketball coach. But instead of he could have, and I don't know if these guys turned us down or if we even went that direction. But the old Louisville coach that's at somewhere else now, Chris Mack, yeah. So like he was a name. Porter Moser, I don't think he was very serious consideration, but he got brought up. That reminds me of every A&M coaching search, Kyle Whittingham, he's top near the odds, and I'm like, yeah, I love Kyle Whittingham. He's great. He's been great at Utah. He does more with less. We'll get them. He's been in the Rose Bowl, that kind of thing. Is he ever going to win a championship there? No. Would he do it here? Probably not. Mark Stoops, we all are well aware of that whole deal. And yeah, he's been really good at Kentucky. They were a doormat before. They're respectable to an extent now. Another does more with less kind of guy. That's not what you really want. You want the upside, the risk, the lottery ticket. Go get the Elko that's been turned Duke around, had them 9-4, 8-5, and whatever else, and kind of resurrected them. Go get the guy from Stanford who scores a bunch of points. Put a big scare into Kansas in the tournament last year, and build some excitement. No one gets excited about a retread kind of guy, and I think that Trev, I think he made the right call here.
Yeah, you got to take chances. He took a chance. I think that obviously, look, part of the fan base, I wouldn't give a percentage. They're not big fans of Trev Alberts. I get it. I think they just want someone to blame because of how football ended last year. I'm going to be honest with you, but it's and obviously with Michael Early and baseball, that's actually what we're getting to next. So I think we've pretty much discussed everything we can about Bucky. Very excited. But moving on to baseball, the Aggies are playing right now as we speak against Sam Houston on the road. Obviously, I don't get a score update yet. I think they're still tied 1-1. But last Saturday's I really don't know how to describe it. Just random occurrence for all of us who cover this team and kind of, have seen the massive downs and some ups and just poor hitting and everything in between. Completely bludgeoned Tennessee in Saturday's doubleheader after losing on Friday night 10-0. We're held hitless. I think I left. I do remember one of my riders was just like, are you going to cover this? I said, no, you can do it. I really am sick of doing post games on this team right now. It's just my eyes couldn't take it anymore. But I went into Saturday thinking, I just want to see improvement offensively. And right off the bat, this team looked completely different. The talent in the lineup finally showed up. You had guys like Hayden Sorrell homering twice. You had Bear Harrison, who's been a bright spot for this team, a catcher homering twice. Jace Lavalette playing like Jace Lavalette. Everybody was producing, and even the pitching was better. And I think I got to give early credit for keeping Ryan Prager in a little later, despite obviously A&M getting killed on Friday, saving the bullpen and leading to a 9-3 win on Saturday afternoon, and then a 17-6 win on Saturday night. I say it's Friday, well, both on Saturday, obviously. One of the craziest things, and I got to ask you guys, I've been kind of struggling with if this is true or not. I don't know if the midweek is going to answer that. I think obviously their series with South Carolina this weekend is really going to answer more questions. But is this a step in the right direction? Have they found something? Are they playing with more confidence? I can't really put a pin on it. I think it's a little mix of desperation and that final run to see if they can do something. But what do you guys think?
I mean, I think it's like we've all been looking this entire year for, I think, something to make us believe that this team's going to turn it around. Because everyone knows the talent and the potential this team has. And so people have been saying for the past 2 months that, they're struggling. Yeah, they're losing these games, but don't count them out because at any moment this team could turn it around. And I think most of us had kind of stopped saying that because at some point you just
I know I had
the results on the field. Yeah. Oh, I had for a while. But yeah, certainly those 2 games on Saturday were, their best performances of the year, and it's not even close because not only were they 2 of their more dominant wins, it was against a team that going into that weekend was, the unquestioned #1 team in the country, the defending national champion. So for A&M to have done that against any SEC team, I think would have been a sign of encouragement. So to do it against Tennessee, even though it is just 2 games and both on the same day, it's enough, I think, to at least get people to check back in and be like, okay, I'm not going to be just completely checked out on this team. I'm gonna keep watching. I'm gonna keep seeing what happens. Because is it unlikely that they have this massive turnaround and all of a sudden everything clicks? Yeah, I think we get it just as easily see all of those problems that we've seen all year come back up and rear their head, and this team continues to struggle over the course of the rest of the year. But if it happens, I think we're all going to point to this past Saturday and say that was when something clicked. So it's kind of just a wait and see mode and pray that that's what's happening.
Yep. Well, side note: A&M is up. Sorry about that. Well, A&M is up 7-1 at the top.
I was gonna say the same thing. So if it makes you feel any better,
that's a good sign.
So it's more positive to talk about this right now.
Yeah. So they've got 9 hits. They have 7 left on base. 7 runs at the bottom of the 4th. Yep. That's encouraging. That's
it's good for a midweek on the road. I would say that.
Yeah. It is in Sam Houston, huh? Yeah. But yeah, I think Robert nailed it. I think the mature, healthy thing is to just kind of lift your head up a little bit and be like, oh, okay, maybe they can hit like we thought they could hit, because honestly,
it's the meme of the guy with playing video games sitting up in his chair.
Yeah, exactly.
Overused, but perfectly used. I'm gonna be honest. It's the best one out there.
and the way they did it, first of all, being no hit and run rolled in game 1 of a series, and that's your ace pitcher, and he didn't have a great outing. I think that was rock bottom. I don't think it was getting swept, in the first couple of series. I think getting no hit run ruled on the first, on the Friday game was rock bottom. And maybe, I'm not a psychologist or a diehard, baseball knowledgeable guy, but maybe that was the spark and like the, hey, like we're done with this. Like we're done, being embarrassed and playing at a level that we know is not sufficient, and we're better than that. And then they come out, and I think it was the way they did it. Like they didn't win a couple squeakers, it wasn't lucky that they, like they won like 3-2, or like Tennessee had a bunch of errors or something crazy like that. Like, no, they just went out there and just mashed the baseball, and
just hit 11 home runs in a day.
Yeah. And
I mean,
and Caden Sorrell, like he was my, preseason, like, hey, this guy's going to be like All-American level if he's like, that's before I knew that he was injured, because his defense is top notch when he's healthy. Obviously, his hitting has come a long way, and he's really starting to show the power. So having him in the lineup, having guys like Jace and Hensler and Kent, having those guys play up to their ability, and the starting pitching, those last two games really did their part. Like you had the combo of Lampkin and Moss really brought it home in that first game. And then Miles Patton and crew on the night game, but yeah, I mean, I think it's like now my eyes are back on the team. Like, hey, and this is a great chance this weekend. I mean, it's not one of the top teams that you're going to play. Like those are coming up down the stretch. Texas, LSU, Arkansas. They're still on the schedule, but can you build off what you did last weekend and maintain that momentum into this series? Can you get a sweep? A sweep would be absolutely enormous. Like even winning the series would be enormous, but man, a sweep would really set you up and get some, some confidence and some buy-in from not just the team, but also, the fan base and make this thing exciting again. I think it could be a very interesting home field stretch here in the next month or so.
Yeah, my last point is I agree with you, both of you guys, and I think bringing up Caden Sorrell, I was actually talking to my dad about this, who's a 82 Texas A&M grad, and he's he pays attention as much as he's retired. So I mean, we watch baseball together when we can, and kind of obviously this season's been pretty ugly, but I remember we were watching that game together. I was there, and we're watching Wyatt Hensler. I think it was Wyatt Hensler's. It was his second home run. I think it was in the last game, and I mean he just destroyed that baseball. And they were just, I mean, you could just see the confidence when they were just walking those bases. And I'm thinking that Friday game must have, and I agree, rock bottom. I mean, that was when they thought, you know what, we're done with this. We're done playing like this. We're done with Texas fans making fun of us all the time. We're done with all of this garbage and getting, berated by our own fan base every weekend. We got to live up to that number one rank, why they ranked us number one. And that's the thing that is so psychological. They ranked you number one. And I'll give Kendall Rogers credit. Every preseason when he does his rankings, I do trust him for the most part. He's going off of roster. He's going off of projections. He's going off of obviously how each team did the previous season, especially in postseason play. And he had no reason not to rank A&M number one outside of bullpen issues and kind of unknown entities and injuries. So when you have that going into the season and you're performing like this, you always go in every game disappointed because you just know how talented this roster is. But I will say this, not having Caden Sorrell, I think, is the main reason why this offense has been so bad. Because I think when one guy comes out and is hitting home runs and is getting consistent at the plate and just has that swagger about him, it wakes everybody else up. And I think that's what I saw. Everyone woke up. Wyatt Hensler looked way more confident. Lavalette looked way more confident. These guys are playing with swagger. And that's why I am confident that you get to go to Bluebell this weekend. You're facing, like you said, a South Carolina team that's good, but not great at even close. You can beat this team. You can sweep this team. I think a lot of that's going to have to do with pitching. But why there's a chance that this team can make the postseason now and go on a run is because they're offense-based. If they can hit, they have enough pitching, I think. That's just my opinion. There's enough there because if that offensive output is elite, you can get by on the mound. So obviously we'll be coming back this time next week talking about this, but I am pretty confident. I'll say that with a little bit of a squint, but we'll see. It's still a long season ahead. And I think people are going to make the Texas series bigger than it is. Obviously, Texas fans are going to be confident they're just going to wipe the floor with the Aggies. But you know what? This could be a completely different team by the time they head to Austin.
Yeah, and I do wonder, we talk about the psychology of the whole thing, and it occurred to me this weekend is like, maybe it's not even that that they're like that they're trying harder. It might be the fact that after what happened Friday night, they almost like gave up in a way.
Yeah.
It's that, this whole time they've been pressing and pressing, trying to live up to what this team is supposed to be. And then maybe that was that rock bottom of just knowing fully, like, this team is not what everyone said it was in the preseason, and just being fully defeated. But the outcome of that is that those guys aren't pressing. They're not like putting all that pressure off themselves. So maybe they kind of like let go of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the results are the guys actually, doing what they're physically capable of doing. But yeah, it's certainly, we'll see where it goes. And man, this is a team that if they can find a way to get into the postseason, can you imagine they were to be some, top 16 seed who gets A&M as a 3 seed in their
it's a nightmare.
It's
a nightmare scenario.
Like so
confident in the post. Oh god! I mean, if I was a betting man, oh man, I'd bet everything on them. And that's the thing. Baseball is so mental. When I played it, if you guys played it, it seriously is the most mental game out there. I mean, I compare it to any other sport. A lot of it, there are a lot of sports out there based on athleticism, and yes, you need to be an elite player, an athlete. Caden Sorrell is a great example of that. Just elite athlete, how he's built. I mean, he was standing on second base and he's got the cool tattoo on his arm. Like, I remember I was like, that guy looks like a baseball player.
And then you
guys just look like baseball player. I'm like, but no, that's the thing. Like, you don't want A&M to get hot. If you are another team, you want them to be like, this is a fluke. Beating Tennessee was a fluke, because we remember, those of us who follow college baseball, LSU was A&M last year. Okay. They did exactly what A&M is doing right now. They were terrible to start the season. Everybody, obviously, LSU baseball royalty is a little different compared to A&M, and it's kind of on the same bar with Texas, obviously, based on their championships. So the fan base has extremely different expectations every year. So that was extremely disappointing. But they still turned it around because they had, and like I just said previously, enough talent. They had enough talent to get over that hump. And we are at that point of the season. I believe they're 16, A&M 16-15 right now. 13 wins, I think. 13 wins is probably going to get you in. That's kind of my thinking right now. I think there's 18 games left, I believe. But it's attainable. It's attainable. And when you get hot, you are hot, and you will lose some games in between. The winning series is all that matters. You get in there, you win as many series as you can, you win your midweeks, you stay healthy, and you've got a chance.
Yeah, I think the comparison that I kind of would point out, and obviously this is a little more drastic, and we'd all be doing backflips if this happened, but it's kind of the inverse almost. But in 2022, Ole Miss was like preseason top 1 or 2. I think up there with Texas, and they started off like fine, and then they really imploded down the stretch, and like barely, like they were the last team into the field in postseason, and they won the whole thing because they still had that ability and that talent. I'm not sitting here projecting that or thinking that's even a realistic goal, but like get into the postseason and see what happens. Like we said, go to a super against a team that probably isn't as talented as you, and then or a regional, excuse me, and then try to get to a super and then see what happens. If this, it'd be an incredible story and a lot of excitement just to see this team get into the postseason and see what they can do. But the precedent is definitely there. Like, it's happened. Crazier things have happened before where highly rated, talented teams didn't play to their ability for most of the year. Found themselves getting a chance in the postseason and then making the most of it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's unlike any sport. And so when we talk about, I remember after that game, I and a lot of other people have written, this is the turnaround. A lot of people saw that as complete hyperbole, and I'm thinking, no, it's really not. Like, this isn't football, right? Because football, when you finish 8-5, and especially for A&M, they are the 8-5 school right now. It's extremely disappointing, and it's just a different type of sport because it's based on attrition down the stretch, trying to stay healthy. and you kind of know outcomes, right, with your team preseason when you're looking at rosters. And we had talked about with Texas A&M football, for example, obviously a defensive line issue depth wise, that they just don't have enough bodies, and how that's going to affect situations against the run down the stretch when other teams are just going to run the ball on you at will. That's the difference in kind of projections right now. When you look at A&M's roster, you see all the star power that's healthy. You don't see outside of Sorrell re-injuring his hamstring, knock on wood, or anything like that. But again, I'll say it one more time, they have enough. It's very realistic to project that they could still make the field. It's one of those things where we're going to be obviously paying attention very close every weekend of how they're performing. If beating Tennessee the way they did actually is going to transpire into something great. But there's a lot of baseball ahead, and at least it's a fun ride. I'll say that it's finally fun again. That's what I've said. I finally look forward to watching those games, because when you do it for a job, it's your job, but you want to look forward to watching those games. And I can safely say I'm very excited to see, obviously tonight looking good, and what they can do starting on Thursday.
I'm with you. I mean, like Saturday was very fun, and and honestly, like, not to bring up a sore subject, but last baseball season was probably one of the funnest, like single funnest seasons of any sporting team that I've ever followed. It's up there with 2012 A&M, with the Rangers World Series run, the one they actually won, not the other ones. But that was fun, and like having a like, because we all know that this team can do it, that they can win, be competitive in this league. And it was fun to see them go and do that, especially to the team that was the unanimous best team in the country and number one in the rankings. So it's gonna be fun to watch.
Robert, any more thoughts?
No, man. Like I said earlier, it's just it gives us a reason to keep watching. So we'll wait and see. We'll see what happens this weekend. And yeah, if they win 2 out of 3 or sweep this weekend, I think a lot of folks are going to start getting excited again. Yeah,
and I think that the national attention will start to grow a little bit. I think that, and I don't think that really matters, but it was very interesting. Kind of seeing how people were responding. Some of the kind of the national baseball guys are going, you know what? This could be something. It wasn't like, it's a fluke. Tennessee's not as good as we thought they were. I didn't hear a lot of that. Because we know Tennessee's good, and we know that Vitel's going to turn that team back to playing elite baseball. So I do believe that this was the start of something, and we'll see what happens. So our last topic today is a fun one. Twitter user CF Budge, content creator CF Budge. He always releases some very interesting rankings, just general college football. He was focusing on the SEC quarterback class right now, and you can kind of see those names up there, guys. Obviously, we're gonna have a lot of debate all season long. Hopefully, we will have.
Is this guy trolling?
I don't know. I mean,
is it a troll post?
I think he's just getting because look, I'll say this: Garrett Nussmeier being at top. I did a quarterback ranking for Aggies Wire, I think in late February, and look, I put him number 1 because of experience, and he was pretty good last year. Obviously not against A&M, but good enough, right? Among this crop of players, Lawrence Seller, that's a little bit of a hype ranking. Nico, I'm gonna be honest, don't know why he's number 3. He had a horrible showing in the college football playoffs. I get he's a 5-star talent. I get that he's got all the tools. And then, we go down the list, and Alabama's going to have a new quarterback this year. Obviously, DJ Lagway, being the talent
he needs to be at 3. Like I don't get having any of those guys in front of him. Like Pavia is a super fun player. He's not a better quarterback than Lagway. The guys at Bama, I mean, heck, there's a freaking hyphen here because I don't know who it is. And then Nico is just not proven to be that level. So
Yeah.
I'm shocked that Arch is at 7. Even
that's
that.
how I was shocked at. When I saw that, I was like, wait, Arch is number 1? What is this? Oh, okay. Well, he doesn't work for ESPN. Anyways, we got to look down and focus on this was the most interesting for me. You've got a guy like Austin Simmons, who I've seen him play. I trust he's a very talented quarterback. Again, this is his first starting season, and he is ranked above John Mateer, who is a transfer from Washington State. I watched him a lot last year. Very, very talented kid. Someone who I think is probably going to be pretty good for Oklahoma in their system. And then, of course, Marcel Reed. I'm glad he was at least ranked ahead of Georgia's quarterback. Isn't it Stockton? Yeah. Font's a little small. But look, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I wasn't even going to aggregate this, to be honest, because it's just like he just kind of threw names at a board. But thoughts, really, like big thoughts on Marcel being number 10. I think that's really personally. I think that's just based on how I've seen a lot of national people talk about Reed, is that they're not following his offseason progression. They're not following him. Colin Klein came out publicly and said he's gaining weight. I think he said he's pounding the calories back. Look, you can have your opinion about him based on last season, but we have to remember he came into a situation where he was thrown into a lineup, first start on the road against Florida in the Swamp, and still won that game. I don't know why this kid does not get the credit he deserves just because they finished 1-4, but albeit we cover Texas A&M, we have a different view.
I do think for a lot of folks who are not A&M folks or don't follow A&M closely, I think their impression of Marcel Reed is they watched the game against Texas.
I agree.
And look, certainly not his best game, but also facing one of the top defenses in the country. And it didn't look good. And so I can see where if that's what of Marcel Reed, then your opinion is going to be a lot different. I also think you can say if the defense makes a stop at the end of the fourth quarter against Auburn and against USC in the bowl game, I think people will look at them differently too, because then you kind of remove that stigma of losing all those games to end the year. Because fair or not, people look at wins and losses as a quarterback stat. Even though that's absurd because, in the A&M's 4 losses, I think the defense gave up 37 points per game. I don't think that's the quarterback's fault.
Yeah.
But this whole list is, it's just littered with speculation and potential. So you can make almost any argument you want. I think I agree with y'all. I think Lagway should be higher. I think Simpson / Austin Mack being number 5 is.
I'm sorry.
It's egregious.
I cannot laugh at that because I'm like, you can't even make a decision who the starter is based on projections. Which make a decision.
And if you're going to project of just whoever the starter is going to be good, then if you're if you're basing it off that, why is Ole Miss not higher? Because the quarterback in Lane Kiffin's offense is always great.
Yeah. I think it's probably why Simmons is where he is. And I'll be honest, I saw Simmons come in the game against, I think, Arkansas or someone last year. He looked really good. I think there could be something there. He's shown more than Simpson or Mack have. But I think, he really did our guy Calzada dirty, man. He put him,
he balled out, man. He balled out when he transferred.
No, I get it. Honestly, I've got a pretty big gripe with Bo Prabula being over Taylor Green. I think, and Stockton too, for that matter.
Sorry to interrupt, but I think Stockton, he's very interesting because you just don't know where to put him, right? You saw what he did, let down the stretch when obviously he had to come in for relief. And I remember in the offseason though, immediately they didn't say, I think Kirby Smart was the one who said he's not our starter. It's a competition, right? We don't know yet. So, but and he performed admirably. So I think this ranking is really going off of, obviously speculation. And I agree with you with Simmons. He's probably a guy who is middle because I do think he's going to be very good because Lane Kiffin always has great QB play. That's just kind of something you can slot in. But the Diego Pavia thing is always funny to me because I never want to. Again, I'm not a college football player. I'm not going to sit here on in my chair and say you're not good enough. But let's be honest, he's not that talented. He's a very hardworking player. Like that's like thing, and he's great in that system.
Yeah. Like for what they do, he's perfect. But
oh yeah, exactly. But
let's not pretend that he's like a precision passer that's going to throw for 4,000 yards or something crazy like that.
Yeah, because I'm fine with the Lagway hype, right? I'm fine with him being like number 2 in some rankings. Like I get it because I've been watching Lagway's high school career for a long time, and I watched him last season when he came in. Outside of a couple bad performances, again, he was a freshman. He's the most talented quarterback among every. Okay, I'm sorry, Arch Manning is the most talented quarterback. I probably have to say that before I get in trouble. But no, it's very interesting. I think that. The bottom half is funny to me too, because Blake Shapen obviously missed most of the season. I think he missed almost the entire season with an injury. And then Jackson Arnold, who was the 5-star future Oklahoma star right at the second to last above Zach Calzada, how far he has fallen. I don't know if he's going to end up rebounding. It's going to be very interesting. He should, right? He's in a offense that is predicated by, turning these talented QBs into great passers, and he's got a lot of weapons to throw to. So that's another interesting one. But
I look at this list and I think like it could be a really fun year at quarterback in the SEC. Like, I think John Mateer is fantastic. I think OU was just completely decimated by injuries. Like against Tennessee, like they had, and probably most of the year, they had their top 5 receivers out for pretty much the entire year. Nick Anderson, Deion Burks played sparingly. Farouk, another guy, Anthony, like they were relying on true freshmen and like not guys that they intended to be their starters. The offensive line was a mess, and they kind of wasted like a really great defense, which they may have a good defense again this year. But I think Mateer, he's really interesting. Simmons, and Reed. I mean, I like to bring it back to Reed. Like he really did show the flashes down the stretch. Now, if you watched him early or watched him against Texas, like I get that. Actually, I tend to agree with Robert on that because I've got a theory that most people only watch our national games. Like in 2020, like everyone watched us against LSU and they're like, oh, this team sucks because it was played in 30-degree pouring rain and we didn't look good. So like that's why we missed the college football playoff. But I digress. But I think like Jackson Arnold can turn around and be a good quarterback with that system. And I don't know, man. It could be a really, really intriguing year for quarterbacks.
I think that is good for Marcel Reed. I do believe that, and we talked about that on the last show, that this offense is predicated to his skill set. And they knew that going in that had to be the case. You needed to get him more skill at wide receiver. You needed to basically have everybody return on the offensive line because he needs good blocking in front of him. He needs good pass protection and obviously run blocking. And because he's still going to, attempt to make plays out of structure. He's going to use his legs when warranted, not too much. Obviously gaining weight this offseason's a big part of that to not get hurt with some of the hits he took last year, and having an elite running game, having depth in the backfield to help, make things easier for you and get guys open. And he's already shown that he can be a very accurate quarterback. Obviously, again, it is funny. We do bring up that Texas game, and you guys are both right that if you just went off of that, you think Marcel Reed is just a horrible quarterback that shouldn't play again. Because he was going against guys like Jahdae Barron and just elite veteran talent. And I remember, it was a pass. It was a pass to Noah Thomas that he missed, but he had to hit that perfectly. And those are the type of passes that, and games that when you're playing against those defenses, you have to have an elite quarterback showing. And he just wasn't there yet. So to criticize him for that, I'm going to be honest, like it was more of an emotional thing. You want to beat your rival. You want to beat Texas, obviously. So you keep going back to that and judging him based on that. And it's just ranking him in the middle, I think is good for him because there's not a lot of hype right now with A&M in this offseason. It really isn't. What was kind of really hilarious to me was our favorite Twitter user, Nash, I believe, for Texas. He had a tweet basically talking about, I don't even pay attention to Texas spring season because I'm so engaged in Texas baseball this season because we're so good. And I'm like, So you're not paying attention to Texas spring with Arch Manning as your new quarterback. So look, the national media attention is going to go to Texas completely. Not even if not everybody who either covers them or talks about how much they love it or paying more attention to baseball, which is kind of funny to me. But I think that's good for A&M as a whole, and I think Reed is really going to respond to that. And I think he's just putting the work in. I mean, that's everything we've seen. And so rankings like this are going to be very similar, I believe. Obviously, Arch is going to be at the top of a lot of them, and then Nussmeier, Sellers, and then probably Lagway, and then everybody else. But this is what I think even Elko wants. This is what Colin Klein wants. You want to enter the season completely under the radar so you can basically start to shock people and say, look, this is an improved team. We did the work in the offseason. Now it's time to produce.
Yeah, and I think just the fact that you bring Marcel Reed back, entering full offseason, full fall camp, knowing he's the starter, bringing back his full offensive line, bringing back, getting Le'Veon Moss and Ruben Owens back in the backfield. And it's his actual second full year in the Colin Klein offense. I think you can't understate the jump that is possible just by the comfort level in that starting role, but also just the comfort level in the offense. And you add in, I think, what should be, an improved group around him. And absolutely, there's a path for him having a big year.
Yeah, I go back to that Auburn game, and he didn't play just lights out. I think that there's a couple things here and there that he probably missed on, but the drops really bothered me that game because we had a fourth down, and even as much crap as Colin Klein got, drew up a perfect play and had Theo wide open, and he just can't bring it in. I know Barber had a similar play, I think on that same end of the field that was pretty late in the game too. It hit him in the hands and just couldn't quite hang on to it. It was kind of an awkward angle, but couldn't hang on to it. And, I think Theo's going to get better. I think Barber was a very, very good college player, or at least, an adequate college player. I think they've really beefed up and got some true, horses in the receiver room. And we talk about the Texas game and all that stuff, having pretty much no running game down the stretch without Moss. That was just a blow, not just to not having his ability, but he was the tone setter, on offense. It all ran through him. And when he went down, it just wasn't the same. But I've got one more ranking with you or for you. If you got 2 minutes
we got time
to go on this, but the same guy, CF Budge, put out some head coaching rankings that I thought was interesting to have. Mark Stoops slided right ahead of Mike Elko. Thoughts on this list?
I'll give a brief one. You gotta love how Marcel's number 10 and Mike Elko's number 10. So he really didn't take a lot of time to think that one up.
I got a lot of faith in Kalen DeBoer.
I don't know where that comes from, but I don't think the Alabama fan base has that much confidence in Kalen DeBoer. Right? I'm going to be honest. And then the great Steve Sarkisian, who I respect very much. I'm not gonna say anything. Being number 3, I'm very surprised by that. I would probably put him number 2. Obviously, Kirby Smart's always going to be number 1. Yeah. I think a lot of people would put Steve Sarkisian number 1. I think they would do that based off of recent, performances and what he's done with talent around him. But you kind of look down the list, and Brian Kelly getting a little dissed at 5, and then Lane Kiffin, and it's I just don't know what to think of these right now. I mean, it's when you look at Clark Lee above Hugh Freeze, and I mean, I don't know where he's getting this in for. I don't know why Clark Lee would be number 11, right? He's had one good season. We don't know if that's going to continue. I don't know how great of a coach he is. I think he's had very veteran teams, and I think he's done a good job. But even you look, I don't know. Interesting enough, my parents had a neighbor who actually works for Jeff Levy. I believe he's on his staff, moved there. But
I think Levy is a good coach, but man,
he's a good coach. Yeah,
it's a brutal job right now. You actually find some decent players, then you lose them all in the portal. Lost the quarterback, you lost your receiver to A&M, and a handful of other guys. I think they wanted Jackson Arnold, they couldn't. Lost out to Auburn. I think I might have Brent Venables, up in the 12 to 13. I'm not going to die on that hill, but I think he's kind of, underrated a little bit. I think Napier's right where he should be. I don't think he's that good of a
year ahead of him. No.
Yeah, but it's crazy that a coach that beat Nick Saban twice is down at number 12. Yeah, I know it hasn't gone great there, but
that's got to be that he's just basing it on his Auburn tenure,
right, and not the Ole Miss stuff. Yeah.
That's the thing. I don't know if you base these I don't think you guys can agree or disagree. I don't know if you base these rankings off of obviously recency and what you've done with one program. I'm going to be honest, like Elko's only been, a head coach for 3 seasons, correct? Yeah, with Duke was 2. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, I understand that he has a lot to prove. Putting him at 10, Mark Stoops, he wins 7 games every year, 7 to 8. I think. I mean, have they ever had a double-digit win season with Kentucky?
I want to say it was like 2019 or something like
Maybe,
that.
yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Oh, I think in 18 we beat them
with a long build-up.
They had that. Yeah, they had that. Really they had that team with the edge rusher. I can't.
Josh Allen.
Josh Allen. Yeah, that was their best team, and so he's had some of those outlier years, and I think I get it. Because of what he's done there with the lack of really recruiting at certain positions. Like he's done a really good job getting developing defensive linemen and linebackers and defense in general. I mean, he's just a defensive coach, but yeah, it's a lot of it's recency. A lot of it I'll give him credit. Like the top 3 is a little controversial. Top 5 is a little controversial because Heupel is a guy who kind of like Rick Barnes in a way can never get to the final round, can never get past take the next step essentially with the program. And then, look, Steve Sarkisian, Texas is going to be favored to go to the championship this year. I'm guessing, despite losing a ton of offensive linemen and having to, put new guys in important positions. It's going to be a very interesting season overall. I think that there are guys in the middle to bottom that have a chance to really soar. I think Napier is one of them. At Florida is kind of I wouldn't say they're a team like A&M this year that could really soar and do something based on quarterback play. I think they're kind of like A&M where, with Marcel Reed plays really well, A&M can be a 9 to 10 win team. If DJ Lagway plays very well, this could be a very surprise team. So,
sorry, Robert. I just took you off the screen.
Well,
I thought I had dropped for a second. I thought I had done.
On the second show, so I mean, this is going to happen.
It's just me. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just clicking buttons. I'm trying to get it to work.
Yeah, there you go.
That works.
Yeah, there you go. Really big. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That's the thing. It's like we can do these rankings now. Talking seasons varies. Getting here before we know it is going to get here before we know it. And so you're going to have these discussions all off season long, and Elko's always going to come up, right? Is he because like I've said, I don't know if it's half of the A&M fan base, but it's a large portion of, is he really a good head coach? Because I think a lot of people see him as like, oh, he's just a coordinator, right? He's not a guy who can take him to the next level. I'm like, yeah, but you can only say that after 2 to 3 years. I think that's what you got to give him. 2 to 3 seasons. Get this thing right. He's recruiting at an elite level. That is one thing we could spend an entire show on of the impressive. Every national analyst has said this guy's matched Jimbo Fisher already. Like, look, nobody's going to do the 22 class. That was just an outlier. But we look at the recruits. I don't think they have a 3-star in their 26 class right now, and that just shows you this guy knows what he's doing, and he's made a lot of great offseason additions to the transfer portal. Obviously, adding Lyle Humphill to the defensive staff. Look, I'm very confident in him. I always have been. I thought the hire was fantastic. I thought that this was the guy who fits A&M's culture and fits everything they're about. And he's doing a damn good job right now. It's just fans just need to see wins to change their opinion. Yeah. And we've got all off season to talk about this. Obviously, the spring game coming on April 19th, and we'll get a little bit out of that. I don't know if we're going to do anything to really go off of too much. But so far, so good. Underrated, I think, is the theme. I think that's the theme for this team right now, and hopefully that works out for him. All right, so that concludes our second show of Texas A&M Aggies Live with the Culture Ball Network. I'm, of course, Cameron Honesty, That's Will Stone, and that's our Barons guys. Obviously, I am at Cameron Honesty on X, formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah, I'm at Will Stone CFB on X.
At RCB05.
The most important Twitter handle of all. All right, guys. It was a good talk. Had a lot of fun. We got a lot to talk about over the next 3 months. Hopefully, Robert, we will have you back to talk everything football, especially maybe even after the spring game. We can have a very deep dive into what we saw. So, all right. As always, gig 'em. And we will see you next Tuesday night at 7 p.m. as always.